Vanakkam, Namaste, and blessings to everyone. This is Dr. Bairavee Balasubramaniam PhD, the Sky Priestess. Today, we are going to be talking about the upcoming occultation of Mercury and the Sun. Now, if you're wondering what an occultation is, it's a fancy word for an eclipse, also known in this case as the transit of Mercury. Depending on where you are in the world, and you can Google to find out, you can actually see Mercury moving as a teeny tiny little black dot against the sun for hours across November 11 and 12, depending on your time zone. So again, look it up and see if you can actually view this directly. So this eclipse, occultation, transit of Mercury across the sun is actually extremely important for all of us. This is one of those dates that I have been looking forward to since the very start of the year, because I kind of knew this was going to be one of those absolutely intense, absolutely important make it or break it moments. Now, I've been looking at the previous transits of Mercury in this sense, and I'm just going to read out a couple of them, which I think is going to be of use to most of you. I mean, I'm sure I can't cover everyone's birth date, but this should be more than useful, I would say. November the 7th, 1960, May the 9th, 1970, November the 10th, 1973, November the 13th, 1986, November the 6th, 1993, November 15th, 1999, May 7th, 2003, November 8th, 2006, May 9th, 2016, and now November the 11th, 2019. We are not going to see another occultation like this till 2032. And then after that, the next one is 2039. And then after that, the next one's 2049. So these are really infrequent celestial events. So if you were to look back, let's just say, looking at the last few instances, let's say looking at November 15, 1999, May the 7th, 2003, November the 8th, 2006, May the 9th, 2016. Look at these dates in your life and see if anything particularly important has happened in them. What happened really depends on your chart, where you are on your spiritual journey, your location, your level of progress. But effectively, these are dates that indicate really key decisions being set into motion. So, at the most basic level, just look at what, now in some cases it happens in Taurus, but for the most part of the dates I've listed, it's happened in Scorpio. Look at look at which houses Scorpio occupies in your chart to give you an idea of just how and where this is likely to influence you. But better than that, just look at your own history or herstory and see what comes up. You can always draw up a basic version of your chart, and in fact a very advanced version as well if you know what you're doing, on www.astro.com. And if in doubt, you can always book a session with me or an astrologer that you trust. In a lot of your cases, both of those definitions overlap. So these are very, very important astrological alignments. They are things that actually make us dig deep into decisions that have to do with our health, our understanding of intimacy, our sexuality, our finances, our relationship with shadow, our understanding of ancestral contracts and how they play out. These are very important days where key decisions are made. So this is where you actually get the opportunity to start a whole new pattern of being, or to let go of an old pattern that has carried through for a very, very, very long time. Now, for some of you, that's going to be really difficult, because a lot of you are very attached to your old patterns, and another lot of you are very, very invested in dissolving them. Sometimes you can actually find a bridge. Something that you did before, something that you invested your energy into, may itself have transmuted through your effort and the efforts of whoever else is involved. And so going with that may actually be a continuation and a step up into evolutionary journey. And sometimes you're going to see that people have not done their work. The buck is being passed to you to carry, for you to carry on your head, and you're being asked to start all of these old cycles again. And at that time, I hope all of you say no. The reason I say this is not just because of the evolutionary time that we are in, but also because one day after this occultation happens, in universal time it happens on November the 11th, but one day after that, November the 12th, we are going to be seeing a full moon in Taurus conjunct Vesta. The full moon in Taurus brings us lessons to do with land, with attachments, with the way we manifest abundance, and with the material relationship we have with this planet and how that influences our sense of self and anchors our sense of stability and solidity. And with Vesta conjunct the full moon, this is a time where people are either going to be asked to commit very, very, very heavily into land, resources, material objects, in search of stability and, a sense of worth, or people are going to be asked to let go of these contracts so they can actually find their true worth in a way that is not bound by outdated ideas of service. Very often we bind ourselves and we allow the words of others to bind us by using words like sacred, service, sacrifice, facilitator, whatever. All of these are just words. What you are as an essence is beyond any of the identities that these words and the contracts behind them are trying to get you to fulfill. As we truly step into the age of Aquarius, and some say that we are kind of in the shifting between both ages, we need to understand that so much of the intellectual, spiritual, psychological terrain, personally, interpersonally, and collectively, has already shifted. Whatever we did in the past in the name of service is not what we need to be doing in the present, and allowing ourselves to let go of those constructs to find true freedom is really what is being called for right now. And that is not an easy thing to do, especially when someone is attached to the contracts that bind them. And it's not an easy thing to hear, but these are not easy times. One of the key themes of this upcoming occultation of Mercury is going to be communication, truly speaking from the heart in your space of clarity and compassion. And that is a tall order on any day. But especially at this time, we do not compromise on truth. Now, truth is a very interesting thing. The way I am using the word truth is not something that comes from your head. It's not something that someone tells you on YouTube, Facebook, or writes on a piece of paper. It is truth that comes from your heart. You never compromise that truth, no matter what. And if you are able to live in that sense of truth from here, not your egos, not your fear, not your desires, not your trauma, not your wounding, when you speak from a resonant, almost it's like a vibration of a bell that goes ping. When you speak from that level of resonance, doors open. People who are interested in your heart and your truth will stand with you, and people who are not will probably kick up a huge drama and fuss about how they're being victimized in the first place. Whatever it is, whatever reaction you get, this is the time for you to stay in that place of heart-centered clarity. As I was writing on my Facebook yesterday, it's not just about that. Another aspect of truth-telling is to also be willing to state what you truly feel from your core is the truth, whatever it is for you. But at the same time, it is also having and coming back from that heart-based center when you have actually done something that had unintentional consequences, which, some of which is your responsibility, some of it isn't, or if you've had a very partial view of a situation and hurt someone over it. These are times where speaking from your heart-based center without losing sight of truth is also really, really important. It's not just, rattling your saber as a truth teller. It is also about expanding your field in forgiveness and apology and building true bridges as and when appropriate. Now, a lot of people posture a lot of the time. That's something that I see. There's a lot of posing, there's a lot of posturing the moment we get into spiritual work. And part of that is role play. Part of that is role play to the point where we can actually let go of all of these words and let go of all of these ideas and go straight back into pure spiritual experience. But sometimes people get stuck in it. They get fixated on, I'm playing this role, I'm playing that role. That's how I work. This is my truth. And the moment we get ossified into these structures, we get screwed. And then we get into all of these old karmic patterns and cycles of service and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Now, service is not a bad word, but the way it manifested in the age of Pisces just does not work for what we're doing right now. Very often, and you will be seeing a lot of familial and ancestral dynamics coming up in more cases than not. Very often, people are almost groomed into accepting these ideas where your personal energy has to be drained for the greater good or for the family. And a lot of people then romanticize the idea about holding space for everyone or becoming the scapegoat or whatever. Heck, I've seen this in my family. Working through this shit is what, at a fairly early age, is what allows me to do what I'm doing. It doesn't mean to say that my journey is anywhere near done. The bullshit is still there. But it certainly allows me to understand and see where my true free will begins and how the influence of past and ancestral conditioning tries to take us away from this. Whilst it is important to help where you can, help when your heart asks you to, not when someone tries to guilt trip you into it. And this too is another key theme of not only the occultation of Mercury and the Sun of November the 11th, but equally the full moon conjunct Vesta on November the 12th, which, by the way, is also trined Pluto in Capricorn, the ruler of Scorpio. So this is a time where we are being asked to let go of old contracts that bind, old forms of karma that pass through the ancestral line, old vows, whether maybe at some point in the past it was truly holy and sacred, but you know what? The spiritual terrain is changing. Old vows in the past that may have made sense then, but they may not necessarily be true now. And through all of this work, you're also still being asked to remain very, very discerning as to what is truth and what is not. Ultimately, coming from a heart-based center would be the most ideal solution to all things, but sometimes people get gaslit. Sometimes people get false projections. Sometimes people get false light, pretending to be working in their highest and deepest good. There are all kinds of weird things in the universe out there. And we are being asked to basically keep our antenna up high, our feet on the ground, and our hearts wide open, knowing that we will stand up for ourselves as and when we need to. Now, some of you have also asked about family dynamics. And like I said, ancestry and family is where we kind of get the conditioning in this life to either break out of or stay in whatever karmic contracts that we got signed up for before we incarnated. And very often people feel like walking away from those contracts is betraying family members. This is a completely understandable energy, but it's also part of that cycle to hook you and to guilt you into doing something that is not yours to do. And very often I see this with people who really struggle very, very, very hard, and they keep holding on to the one thing that keeps draining them. And it's very hard to tell them, look, the thing that you really think is helping you is really just kind of leeching off of you. It's very hard to look at those dynamics in the crystal clear clarity of heart-based consciousness, because it means having to change what the definition of family is. Sometimes, we just take it for granted. What is what is. But a lot of people, when they open their eyes to the forms of abuse and grooming that they've seen in their own families, they actually feel the need to just distance themselves, or they may dare to try and change the dynamic by being very proactive about speaking these unspoken truths, very often being ostracized or cast as the black sheep or whatever. But you know what? At times like this, staying in the truth is more important. And there is an even bigger reason for that. Because November, the month, the mystical and magical month of November, is not done with you yet. It's not just the 11th and 12th. What's going to happen coming up in the later part of November is going to be so important that you are going to want to have those key decisions made now. I don't agree with other astrologers who say that you can't make decisions during Mercury retrograde. I don't agree with that one bit. Because in my life, I've actually found that the most powerful decisions onto my personal journey and my understanding and evolution came at times of Mercury retrograde. And no, I was not born when Mercury was retrograde anyway. So I disagree with the idea that you can't make decisions now. I disagree with the idea that you have to sweep things under the carpet. This is the time where, when you are able to go and sit with yourself and look at yourself with that light of truth, no matter what it shows, no matter what ugliness or what beauty it shows, when you are willing to look at the truth, this is a powerful time to go back and make changes in yourself that ripple across the timelines. So whatever powerful decisions you are making, yes, be very, very careful in making them. They will have an absolute ripple effect. Do not avoid the work. This is not a time for you to be kind of sidestepping. Sometimes I tell you to sidestep when it's really just not time for you to be doing this. But this is game time. This is, there's no more time to be burying your head in the sand. There is no more time to be going, I'm just going to wait for this to blow over. Because in the later part of November, especially November the 19th, we're going to be seeing Jupiter on the Galactic Center. The Galactic Center energy is one that brings us into alignment with whatever paths we choose. Now, irrespective of what you think of him, and I'm not going to get into my personal views of this person, but just as an example, the current president of the United States, his particular chart has a lot of connections with the Galactic Center. That does not mean that this is necessarily a person coming from true love and true light. It simply means that he has the ability to make a profound influence on this planet. And whether it's a good or a bad influence is something that each person is going to have their own particular view on. Galactic Center alignments does not necessarily give you a get out of jail free card. It's not an energy that says, this is all wonderful, it's all amazing, it's all happening now. Anyone who is telling you that is bullshitting you. It is an energy that says, this is where you get things to happen in alignment with what you want. Some guides will take you onto the path of greater truth and clarity. Some guides will take you into conflict and delusion. It's not like an overwhelmingly positive alignment because of the existence of not just the light, but equally what is known as the false light. Guides or spiritual contracts that are using the language and the rhetoric of spirit, but taking you in a completely different direction. So this is why this alignment is so important. And Jupiter just amplifies everything that's there. It does give you an opportunity for growth and going forwards, but only when you are willing to confront your own illusions within. So that's Jupiter on the Galactic Center, November the 19th, Universal Time. And November the 23rd, we see Venus on the Galactic Center. That is going to be manifestation prime time. So you want to be in a space where you are ready to walk on the path of your choosing. Know that there are so many illusions that are affecting this planet that to the best of our ability, a lot of us aren't even aware of it. But the more you actually set the intention of seeing through the eyes of the heart rather than the eyes of the mind of what you've read or what you think you know or whatever, the more you set the intention to come back from here and to respond in truth and clarity, the more you will be willing to and able to benefit from what your greatest path of growth is. So this is really a time to challenge yourself, to rise up to the occasion, to not shy down, and to look at it in the eye and say, this is who I am. What do you got? See what I mean? So that's what's happening throughout November. There's just a lot of intensity, a lot of power, a great need of clarity and compassion. Remember that compassion does not require the compromise of your fundamental essence of being. That is not called compassion. That is called more sacrificial bullshit. Anything that requires you to be any less of a human being than you are is also karmic BS. Let me underline that. Having said all of that, these are the alignments that are coming up. You have the information that you need. Discern and choose as best as you can. You can find facilitators to help you, and they are likely to tell you something along these lines, at the very least if they have the same wavelength that I am/we are. But at the end of the day, the decision is going to be in your hands. Guilt, all karma, all expectations of ancestral baggage do not make for good ingredients for what it is you want to create in the world right now. What is possible goes far beyond what you did before, what you thought you were, even if you use the words like sacred or service or whatever. All of that stuff has to be dissolved for us to step into the new. So take care, very many blessings, lots of love as always, and I hope this helps. Cha-cha for now. Bye-bye.